Welcome to the Hindu Daily. We've got a really interesting mix of sources today, kind of bridging big global policy ideas with what's happening right on the ground in India. We're diving into three quite different areas. First, the challenge of making welfarism actually, sustainable. Then this huge effort to update India's electoral rolls. And finally, something maybe a bit unexpected, the world of Indian kiddie parties. So let's jump right into that first source on welfarism.
Yeah, it feels like there's this global shift happening, doesn't it? A definite swing back towards, well, organized welfare. You see hints of it with leaders like Lula, Keir Starmer in the UK, and of course, various chief ministers here in India. But the source really zeroes in on a specific case. Zoran Mamdani, who's set to become mayor of New York City on January 1st, 2026.
Right, and his big promises, free buses, rent freezes, universal childcare, they really force the question, don't they?
Exactly. How do you deliver that kind of deep welfare support without undermining the very market systems that will ultimately have to pay for it all?
It's not really questioning if welfare is good, but how to make it practical, how to make it last in economies that rely heavily on markets. The source jumps straight into that economic tension.
That's the core issue. Pushing prices down to zero, maybe like free bus fares, it sounds great, but the risk is the quality drops off a cliff or you get these weird black markets popping up.
Okay, so what are the extremes we need to avoid? The source mentions these two traps.
Yeah, framed using two big thinkers. First, there's what they call the Pareto trap. Pareto efficiency is all about maximizing the overall system, making things run smoothly. But the downside, it can tolerate exclusion. Think of a super efficient metro line that runs perfectly, but completely bypasses the working class areas because extending it there wasn't seen as optimal for the whole system.
So peak efficiency, but it leaves people behind.
Right.
Got it. And the other side, the Rawls trap.
Right. John Rawls argued, we should judge a society by how well its least advantaged members are doing. So a purely Rawlsian approach might say, okay, freeze all rents to protect tenants. But the problem is, if you suppress prices like that across the board, what happens? Landlords stop maintaining buildings, no one builds new housing, and eventually even the middle class might leave that system.
Which could actually hurt the very people you were trying to help if the support coalition falls apart.
Precisely. You end up with, grand pronouncements about social justice, but the actual quality of life, the housing stock, it deteriorates.
It sounds like this endless cycle. Markets fail the poor, so we bring in protections. Then the protections stifle the economy, so we deregulate again.
That's exactly the double movement that Karl Polanyi talked about. Markets push for more freedom, which creates social problems, leading to demands for protection. But then those protections can become rigid, choking things off, leading back to calls for liberalization. A healthy society, the argument goes, needs to kind of oscillate, finding a balance.
Okay, so if we can't just swing wildly between these two extremes, the source suggests building something like a policy thermostat. Is that the idea?
Yeah, a thermostat. One that leans Rawlsian, towards protecting the vulnerable when times are tough, but shifts more Pareto towards efficiency when there's capacity. The goal is welfarism. That's, as the source puts it, fiscally honest and microeconomically careful.
So how do you actually build this thermostat? What are the practical steps?
Well, the model suggests three key things. First, focus subsidies on outcomes, not just inputs. So instead of just giving a bus company money to cover its losses.
You pay them for results.
Exactly. You contract for specific things like on-time kilometers traveled or ensuring enough seats are available during peak hours on busy routes.
Okay, but doesn't that just shift the problem? Like, how do you make sure they're not gaming the measurements?
That's definitely the challenge. You move from worrying about, say, financial fraud to worrying about measurement manipulation. But systems like Singapore's bus contracting model or France's transport discount scheme, Solidarity Transport, they show it can be done. Often keeping a small fare helps maintain some fiscal discipline. The government pays for verified performance, not just for keeping inefficient services running.
Makes sense. And the second principle, moving away from blunt controls like rent freezes.
Right. Instead of a rigid freeze, the idea is to use contingent buffers. Think means-tested vouchers that automatically increase during economic shocks. And you pair that with things that encourage more supply, like faster zoning approvals for new housing, so you protect people without killing the incentive to build.
And the third point?
Default to cash or electronic vouchers where possible. But, and this is crucial, back them up with credible public options. Brazil's Bolsa Família or Kenya's Inua Jamii are often cited. The government ensures quality standards, maybe through accreditation, and public providers act as a benchmark, quality floor that keeps private providers honest.
The sources also mention these mission-driven firms. They seem pretty important in this model.
Oh, absolutely vital. They're kind of the connective tissue. These are often nonprofits or social enterprises that use cross-subsidies. So paying customers essentially help cover the cost for those who can't afford it. The classic examples given are India's amazing eye care systems, like Aravind or LV Prasad Eye Institute. They provide world-class care, often free for the poor, funded by those who pay.
So wrapping up this first part, for someone like Mamdani, the key is transparency and linking promises to actual investment.
Yes, the promises need clear costing, and they need to be paired with public investment to increase supply, more buses, more housing. The goal is welfare that crowds in market solutions rather than crowding them out, a really complex balancing act.
Okay, let's shift from that high-level policy design to something equally complex but very different.
The sheer scale of administration in India, specifically this Special Intensive Revision, or SR, of the electoral rolls.
Yeah, the scale here is just mind-boggling. The Election Commission of India, the ECI, started this process on November 4th, 2025. It covers 9 states and 3 union territories. And get this, it's only the 9th time they've done this kind of intensive revision in India's entire 75-year history. The last one was 21 years ago.
Wow, and how many voters are we talking about?
They're reviewing the records of 51 crore electors. That's more than half the country's total voter base. The final cleaned-up roll is due out on February 7th, 2026.
So why now? And why is it causing friction in some places? The source says no two elections are the same. Well, the main goal is basically a massive cleanup. Identifying people who've passed away, moved, or maybe you're registered multiple times. After 21 years, you can imagine there's a lot to update. The friction comes because, well, elections are inherently political, and local contexts matter hugely. In places like Tamil Nadu and Kerala, the ruling parties were apparently initially quite skeptical, took a dim view, as the source puts it.
And West Bengal?
West Bengal was described as more combative, particularly in constituencies near the Bangladesh border, where issues around citizenship and verification are always sensitive. Uttar Pradesh also has its own complex social dynamics that make any large-scale verification exercise tricky.
Okay, but a big concern in the past with these exercises was voter fear, right? Fear of being asked for documents, potentially being struck off the list. What did the ECI do differently this time?
This seems to be the crucial adaptation. The ECI issued a very clear instruction. No document is to be collected from electors during the enumeration phase. That's a direct quote. And it's a big deal. It's designed specifically to reduce that anxiety. So it feels less like an interrogation and more like a confirmation.
Yeah.
How does it work in practice for the voter then?
Basically, everyone who's signed a enumeration form is collected gets included in the draft roll. The key shift is only if your details can't be matched or linked with the previous records will you be specifically notified and given a chance to clarify. So it's inclusionary by default rather than potentially exclusionary. The burden of proof is handled differently.
And who are the people doing this door-to-door work? The field agents?
Those are the booth-level officers, DLOs. They're mandated to make 3 attempts to visit each household. And importantly, they've been specifically told to carry at least 30 blank forms with them. So they can enroll new voters on the spot, not just check existing ones.
Exactly. It makes the process feel more about maintaining an accurate and inclusive register, not just about auditing or deletion.
So it sounds like the initial political resistance, that stop sir call, might be softening.
It seems that way. The source suggests it's now seen more as a fait accompli, a necessary cleanup. And apparently, a trial run in Bihar went smoothly, with good cooperation on the ground and very few appeals, which likely encouraged parties to work with the process.
So the challenge remains huge, but the approach seems more sensitive this time.
Definitely. Execution is still complex, and maintaining voter trust is paramount. The ECI has a strong legacy, but this massive exercise really tests their ability to combine standardized rules with, empathy and local understanding.
A fascinating look at democracy in action at an immense scale. Okay, let's completely change gears for our final source. We're moving from formal administration to informal social and financial networks, the Indian Kitty Party.
Yes, this source offers a really wonderful insight into cultural ingenuity. It starts with this great anecdote about Indre S., an expat from Lithuania.
The one who thought Kitty Party meant hello, kitty.
That's the one. But she quickly learned it was actually a window into India's social fabric. The roots, according to the source, likely go back to North India in the early 1950s. Essentially, they started as informal savings clubs for women. A way to socialize, yes, but also to manage money outside the direct control of the household budget.
And the mechanism is pretty straightforward, right? Everyone contributes, one person gets the kitty each time, and hosts the next gathering.
Simple, but powerful. The source emphasizes the financial agency this gives women. That lump sum, the committee money, as it's often called, is theirs to decide how to use.
Like the example from the show Gulak.
Exactly, where the character Shanti Mishra proudly uses her committee money to buy a mixer grinder, asserting her independence. It could be for anything, a luxury item, a fixed deposit, helping with a down payment on property. It's discretionary income.
And it's not just about spending, is it? It functions almost like a small business network, too.
Absolutely. One woman interviewed, Simi Chabra, who's a makeup artist, calls her groups a fertile ground for business. Word-of-mouth marketing happens naturally. She even mentions one group specifically for female entrepreneurs. So it's a space for networking, referrals, mutual support, potentially much faster and more trusted than formal channels.
Things have changed over time, though. The source notes a shift away from always hosting at home, like maybe in the 90s.
Yeah, there's definitely been an evolution. More gatherings happen in cafes or restaurants now, easier, perhaps more about the social enjoyment, a hassle-free good time. Disposable incomes have risen too.
And men are getting involved now. Couple kitties.
That's mentioned too, reflecting changing social dynamics. But the core financial function can still be quite serious. The source highlights Shobha Chabra, who saved her kitty money systematically over 5 years.
What does she use it for?
She pooled it with her kitty friends, and together they financed pilgrimages to all the major dhams across India. That's significant long-term saving and planning happening entirely within this informal structure.
We do need to address the stereotype, though. These groups are often dismissed, aren't they? Especially by men, maybe, seen as just gossip sessions.
Yes, the source explicitly mentions the male gaze that often trivializes these gatherings. It's a common reaction, perhaps, when women create strong networks outside traditional structures.
But the reality is much deeper.
Much deeper. The source frames them as critical for emotional well-being, mental support. They are genuine support systems.
Like the example of Shobha Chabra again, the widow.
Exactly. For her, as a widow, her kitty friends are a vital social connection, separate from her daughter. It ensures she has companionship, people to rely on, especially anticipating when her daughter might marry and move. It's about securing her own social and emotional future. Another woman, Juanita Ashok, talks about groups that have been together for 35 years. Imagine. They've literally grown up together, supported each other through everything. That kind of shared history provides incredible mental support.
So, far from being frivolous, they're actually these intricate webs of support, financial savvy, and emotional resilience.
Precisely.
All right.
A really ingenious form of coexistence and mutual support, often underestimated, but clearly very powerful.
From designing sustainable welfare in global cities to managing democratic processes for 500 million people and understanding the subtle power of informal social finance. Quite the range today.
It really is. But there's a thread, isn't there? Whether it's policy design, administrative rollout, or community networks, success seems to hinge on that blend of smart design and empathetic real-world execution. Understanding the people involved.
Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.